Hey, Joshua. Thank you so much for joining me.
No problem. Sorry to do it on a Saturday.
That's okay. My joke always is that criminal defense does not happen Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. That's for sure.
No.
Yeah. So, yeah, again, thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. It was so great to hear the result that Darren got for you. And thank you for being willing to give a testimony about that. Your case was pretty long in the making. I'm looking at the records, and you joined us in like 2021
Yes. Yes, it was
originally.
it was it was it was a process.
So talk to me a little bit about maybe how you found the team along the way, because we certainly changed as a law firm along the way. And then we
Yep.
kind of hit this stride right around 2024, the
Yep.
beginning. Talk to me a little bit about that, about the difference on your end.
Yeah, so, originally I didn't even know this law had passed. We had gotten a random letter in the mail from a lady named Barbara. I forget her last name, but she had
Barbara
known.
Wright, yeah.
Yeah, Barbara, thank you. Saying that this law had passed. Nobody talked about it, nobody knew about it. I live kind of in the sticks a little bit. So didn't even know this was even on the table, right? And so I had immediately called her and I'm like, hey, I got this letter. Like, is this, what is this? And she referred me to Darren. She goes, Darren's great. He is the one lawyer that she went through, I guess, for her son, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
Um, and that she couldn't speak highly enough. So my next phone call was to Darren, and I was like, "Hey, again, don't know heads or tails of this. Don't even know if I'm really eligible for this, but like, let's dig in." And Darren through the entire process was absolutely transparent. He went out of his way to not set false expectations, to not set, to not get your hopes up, right? But to say, look, we've got a clear line here that we can trace, with data, right? That there's some yellow, and he even said, he goes, there's some yellow flags, but I don't see any red flags, right? I said, he goes, I see green and I see yellow. And that was really good to hear, right? Because over the course of this, and this because you and I have spoken about this before, with scam calls and people calling your employer and all these things, like I wasn't doing anything wrong, but there's always that voice in the back of your head when you're going through this saying it doesn't take much. All
Yeah.
of your information is out there. It doesn't take, and I think that's the worst part of this whole thing, right? Is that it's not even at this point with the way technology is, it's not even what you do. When your information's out there, it's what anybody can say you do.
Yeah.
And from that point on, it can kickstart this whole other chain of events that spiral, from just anxiety fueled, just a lot, right? And Darren was there the entire step of the way, and that says a lot about who he is as a person, and it says a lot about who your team is as a group.
Yeah.
And so that speaks volumes to all of you guys that from 2021, like you said, to 2026, you guys have been steadfast in walking with me. And that has made the biggest difference in my wife and I's all of our peace of mind, knowing that through all of the scam, I mean, there were tens of scam calls that, tens and twenties of them. At one point, it was happening several times a week.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't call me, but they'd call my wife, they'd call um you know my employer, they would, and it actually to the point got me where I got laid off from a job. And again, you guys stayed with me the entire step of that process.
Yeah.
And so when Darren asked, like, hey, could you leave me a Google review, I'm like, I'll do whatever you need me to do, like
Yeah.
100%. Like we can absolutely hash that out, like whatever you need, like we'll do that. That's the least that I could do to help
Yeah,
you guys.
because I tell my networking group too, no one gets on Facebook and says, "Hey, I need a criminal defense attorney." They're
No.
going to it's word of mouth. You have to find somebody that you trust. The other part of it, you were talking about that anxiety level of, all of our clients. So Darren does the criminal defense. We have a new attorney, Marcus Ross, criminal defense, and then the other half of our practice is family law. So all of these people that are calling, their world is being turned upside down. And they're not at their best, and they're
Right.
nervous and they have that. And so, like, with the team, I've been training them, like, give grace, make the most generous assumption. You're dealing with folks that, like, their world is crumbling around them and they don't know this is like their only case, and it's
Right.
our 1,000 or, 10,000 case,
Right.
right? Whatever that is. And so, like, treating everyone, again, not setting, you know, the wrong expectations, being very
Right.
honest with them, and like, we're not going to rose-colored glasses or anything like that, but we will get you through this.
Yeah. Yeah. And Darren, like I said, Darren and all of your paralegals, I know through the transition, it was like every time I get an email from somebody different, right? Because the paralegals, you could just tell we're like, I'm like, all right, I don't know who I'm emailing at this point, but like whoever's on the other end of this, like, here's the
Yeah.
information somebody else requested, and at a certain point, it just became, it was at a certain point, because like we were having the same issue at work, right? So at work,
Yes.
I'm an operations manager. And so I'm like, you guys, like, we're not the only ones in this boat, but I'm like, I don't know who I'm sending this to at this point, but like, and I tell my wife, I'm like, well, we're on like the fourth paralegal now. Like, I don't know what's going on over there, but like, I guess they're figuring it out. Um,
Yeah.
and it was, but I'm glad to see that you guys are figuring it out. And obviously you guys are navigating, and I saw you guys now have a second location.
Yes. Now we have a
Which is
location in
impressive.
Pickerington as well, which is so nice because that's where Darren and I are located. It's nice to be 7 minutes away instead of 45 minutes away. And
What? You mean you don't like the commute?
I've got an amazing office manager up there on Bethel Road, and the team is great. And now we have a ticketing system. So items come in and it goes to paralegal at the Meade Law Group, and then they all see it at the same time. So there's four
Oh, awesome.
paralegals right now. But yeah, you'll probably get individual, but there was some turnover. There was some, like, as we were seeking just that right crew who could handle this type of work without making it more dramatic.
Worse.
Like, the
Yeah.
work is hard enough. The
Yes.
stories are hard enough. To add the extra on top makes it miserable for everybody. So finding that right crew who is like, they think about their own mental health, in addition to the clients. And yeah, so now we've got this great ticketing system, and we actually have one paralegal who works in Taipei. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, her husband is in the a basketball network. I don't know he plays basketball for a team in Taipei. They've been moving all over the globe. And
Wow.
so she has her degree from Texas, but she was an intern of ours like 3 years ago. I'm so happy to have her on our team because the effect is she is like a paralegal elf in the middle of the night because she's on
Yeah.
a different time zone. And so she's in
Yeah.
there like the day before we even, we get the case, say 5 o'clock at night, and I let her know, and she's like working on all the stuff overnight. Or for your case in particular, she was able to have that deep work and long research uninterrupted by phone calls and everything else. So that's how we got the most stride on your case, was because Lexa was over in Taipei and able to work on it in the middle of the night.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. So, talk to me a little bit about Darren again and your interactions with him, if you don't mind.
Yeah, like I said, from the onset, Darren really went out, and I don't know if it's him going out of his way or if it's just the way that he is. You'll know him better than anybody does, right? But he really makes it a point to address your concerns at a multitude of levels, right? From low, medium, high level, I would say. So he addresses it, he tackles the ground level first, and then he kind of extrapolates it out. But he layers over himself several times over to make sure that all the gaps are filled. Where when you're done talking to him, um, not only are your questions answered, but you're actually at peace, right? Like you're at peace with the answer. You're not wondering what gaps there are, right? Like it's a pretty solid answer. And there are very few, I deal with people every day in business, right? Operations manager for a sign and lighting company. We deal with other businesses all day long. And genuinely, I wish that more people were like Darren, and you ask a question and you don't get just an answer. You get a very detail oriented answer that answers your next four questions concurrently because of the one answer, right?
Yeah,
Um,
he's notorious for it.
and it's great, right? Because you cut down so much just mess in the middle, right? And so, like I said, when I say that you're at peace, you genuinely are at peace. And with my case specifically, with all the scam and all that stuff, I was calling the sheriff's office, and I know at one point the sheriff deputy that I talked to was more callous than not, and you could tell that he was having an off day. But he was like, "Look, I'm not going to call you. I'm just going to come get you." Okay, that doesn't make you feel any better. Like I
No.
know what he would, and I know what he was, and I'm not blaming him at all. I'm sure that, like I said, rough days be had. I get it. Um, you immediately call Darren and you're like, this answer I just got does not make me feel warm and fuzzy. Like I don't have the warm and fuzzies here. And Darren goes into detail and he talks it through with you. And he's like, I wouldn't worry about it. We're not going to worry about it until there's time to worry about it. We'll get through whatever that looks like. And you just, and he goes, and he does. He just says, we're going to take it one step at a time.
Yeah.
And he goes, my team is on it. We're taking care of it. We're going to move as fast as the process lets us take. And he said, your case is complicated. It was not an easy case to get through, um, for varying reasons, right? And so him taking the time and really getting to know my case so that when we did talk or we did, have updates, I think I was probably driving you all nuts because like I was asking for updates, like, hey, I checked the docket today and then, like it was just, and I'm sure I was driving everybody insane. Um,
We were so
but no,
happy when we got the result. That was, yeah, a cheer went out in the office. That was pretty cool when Darren announced it on our Teams thread.
awesome. But like I said, his ability to just meet you where you are is really second to, I would rival any first responder or anybody out there for his ability to truly meet you where you are and to really get down in the trenches with you and say, we're gonna battle our way out. And it's gonna be, this is gonna be, and to sound corny or not, like this is trench warfare. We're gonna get through this, but it's gonna be the process is meant to be difficult.
Yeah.
Like he goes, this is not an easy process. This is, there's a lot of green flags, there's a lot of yellow flags, and we have to get through those. And that's going to take some time. We're going to have to break down some fences, and we're going to have to do some, nitty gritty work in here, and it's going to take time. And it did. I mean, like I said, like you said, it's 2021 we started this process, and 2026 we finally got the answer we were looking for.
Yeah.
But his ability and his willingness to like I said, get in the trenches with you, walk with you, know that him and his entire team is there rallying behind you is really second to none. And I can say through my criminal trial at the beginning of it, we didn't have that. That didn't exist.
Yeah.
And that whole thing was anxiety riddled. And the peace of mind that Darren brought in and all of you brought was really second to nothing else that I'd experienced to this point. And so I am eternally grateful to each and every one of you for walking that walk with me and for carrying the torch where it was so dark that my wife and I just couldn't see out.
Yeah.
Knowing you guys are there, knowing you guys are only a phone call away if for some reason somebody does show up. It's a peace of mind that for years we didn't have.
Yeah.
And so like I said, Darren it was instrumental in that, and it's instrumental in you guys developing a team that you guys both have is incredible. And I like I said, the team that you guys have has been absolutely brilliant.
I feel lucky, but at the same time, I know we also worked really hard to build that team and we had our elbows out. Like it has, we have got to build this team up with solid, knowledgeable folks, but empathetic folks and, and then make sure everybody leaves at the end of the day, takes a break so they can
Yeah.
come back fresh. So.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, Joshua, I cannot thank you enough for just taking these few moments to speak with me and to, let me use this as a testimonial to others. Because, like I said, folks don't get on social media and say, "Hey, I need a criminal defense attorney." They need
Yeah.
you know,
Well, and like in my case, in today's world, you're like, oh, you need to register all your online identifiers. You need to do all this stuff. You can't. Like you just can't. So the easiest answer is to stay off of all of it. And so like now that I'm allowed to have all that, like I told my wife, like I don't even know where to start with that. And it really is where, you know, had I not gotten that letter in the mail in 2026, I mean, it looked like junk mail. To be completely honest with you, it looked like complete junk mail.
Yeah,
And luckily, I just happened to open junk mail because
because
you
you
just,
never
I
know.
live, you just never know, like whatever, you know. But legitimately, there would have been no other way for me to know, because again, that's part of not to go off track here, but one of the biggest issues I think with the registry is it really disconnects you from the rest of the world and today with the way today's world is.
Yeah.
You are completely isolated from everybody and you're ostracized from everybody, and um, so like I said, had I not gotten that letter, I can tell you right now that one, I would still be on the registry. I would have never found Darren and I would have never found your team. And I would be sitting here for the next 25 years of my life on a registry and just falling further and further behind in today's world.
Yep.
So, you know, Darren is a huge part of that because now for the first time in however many years it's been, um, I actually have control of my own life now. And they'll sit there and say, well, you're not under probation or you're not under any of that in a very off color way because you're not under restriction. But if you miss one login or you miss one thing here, it's just not worth it.
It is a big cloud that hangs over your head and follows you wherever you go. So thank
Yeah.
goodness for Barb that she was like sending out those letters to let everybody know.
Yeah. Yeah, and so like I said, and thank God for you guys, truly, for taking the call. And look, my case was not an easy cut and dry case. It just was not. It was a rural county that didn't really do the things they were supposed to do.